So if you've taken up running recently, or if you're an experienced runner looking for a new wearable that tracks your running metrics, training and performance metrics but doesn't cost an absolute fortune, then there's good news, because Garmin have recently launched their Forerunner 165, which as of 2024 is their cheapest running watch with an AMOLED touchscreen. But does that price tag mean that Garmin have removed most of the key features from the 165 that make a Forerunner an epic running watch? Now, I've been using the Forerunner 165 for the last few weeks to try and find an answer to that question, and in this video I'll talk through its design, the performance metrics that you can get out of it as a runner, test its heart rate sensor accuracy, talk through its real-life battery drain profile, some annoying features, some cool features, and much more, which may hopefully help you make a purchase decision if you're looking for a running watch just like this, or even if you want to enter the Garmin ecosystem for the very first time. Okay, let's start off this review by talking about the price of the Garmin Forerunner 165. Now, there's two versions of this watch. The cheaper one costs $250 and that's actually the non-music version of it. And then there's the music version that costs $300, and the main difference between the two being that you can load music onto the watch and stream it straight to your Bluetooth headphones on the $300 version. And the one that I have been using for the last few weeks is this cheaper $250 non-music version. And I initially thought that I'd made a mistake by getting a white Forerunner because I thought it would get sweaty and grimy over time, but it has held up really well so far. Okay, so let's talk about the design of the Forerunner 165, and this watch actually feels quite light and comfortable to wear day to day. The build here is a standard polymer that Garmin uses on quite a lot of its watches, and the glass is specified as chemically strengthened glass. Now, Garmin always make it a point of saying in their website if it's Corning's Gorilla Glass 3. So the fact that this is only specified as chemically strengthened, even though Gorilla Glass 3 is chemically strengthened, makes me feel that this is a slightly inferior version of that. But overall, I've had absolutely no issues. There's not a single scratch in the last few weeks. Now, speaking of the display, it's a 1.2-inch colorful and vibrant touchscreen, and I've had absolutely no issues using it outside in bright sunlight as well as indoors. The only thing is, I used to have a Garmin Venue 2 in a previous life, and that was 1.3-inch in size, and using this 1.2-inch version felt a teensy bit smaller than my older Venue 2. But after a day or two, I was used to it, and you know what? The size of the screen, the colors, icons, the resolution and the animations are almost perfect for this size of watch. I wouldn't really change much if I wanted to. Now, the bands on the Forerunner 165 are a standard 20mm, so you can change them out if you want to. And at the back, you've got Garmin's suite of sensors, including their Elevate heart rate sensor. And I'll talk through its heart rate sensor accuracy later on in this video. Okay, so let's talk about the user interface of the Forerunner 165. And starting off with the touchscreen, you can swipe up or down to bring up these glances, which are summaries of key stats like your heart rate, body battery, heart rate variability, and so on. Now, there's 5 buttons on the Forerunner 165, just like many other Forerunners. So there's 3 on the left and then 2 on the right. And one thing I do want to mention is that there's quite a lot of flexibility given to users in that you can get around the UI just by using the touchscreen if you wanted to, or by using the buttons. It's entirely up to you. Now, the first button on the top left is mainly used for turning the screen on or off, which is quite useful if you're running outdoors. Long pressing that button also takes you to the controls menu, from where you can access quick actions such as powering your watch off, using Garmin Pay, activating Do Not Disturb, and so on. Now, the second and third buttons on the left hand side are used for scrolling up and down through the watch's UI. Long pressing the second button from the watch face takes you into device settings, and long pressing it again in a sub menu takes you into its additional settings. Now, long pressing the third button takes you to the music menu, from where you can control the music being played either on your phone or on the watch itself. Now, the top button on the right is a shortcut button to start a run or any other activity in that list, and it also acts like your enter or return button on the keyboard. Now, the bottom button on the right is the back button that you can use to get out of any of the submenus. Now, if you've never used a Forerunner before, the buttons might seem overwhelming at first, but they absolutely make sense once you've gotten your head around it, because you don't want to be fiddling around the tiny touchscreen and the icons if you're out on a run or if you're at the gym and using weightlifting gloves. Now the touch input and software speed has been really good for me, and it's never crashed or become unusable during my use. And I absolutely love the colors that Garmin have used here, and the icons look sporty as well as modern. And I personally think that this UI is going to age really well, and it's definitely a winner for me. Okay, so let's discuss activities and exercise modes. So the Forerunner 165 has more than 25 built-in activities for indoors as well as outdoors. So you've got the usual stuff like the running on a treadmill, track running, as well as outdoor running. And then you've got some other basic activities like yoga, weightlifting. It also has sports like paddle and pickleball, but not a whole lot more than that. In fact, my 3-year-old Garmin Venue 2 has a longer list of activities than my Forerunner 165 here in 2024. I guess Garmin had to find some way to strip out some activities and features from the Forerunner 165 to justify the price point, which is just unfortunate, to be honest. Okay, so let's talk about running dynamics, training, and performance metrics. And you've got the usual stuff like cadence, pace, heart rate, and elevation, things that are almost on all other watches. Now, if you get a Forerunner 165, you get something called training suggestions, in which the watch will use your running history and upcoming events, races, and challenges to give daily training suggestions, which adapt after every run. Now you've also got something called as training effect, which basically gives you a score between 0 and 5 and tells you how a specific activity has impacted your overall training. Now the Forerunner 165 is also capable of computing running power, which is a measure of the amount of work you are doing as you are running. Now you've also got ground contact time in the Forerunner 165, which is a measure of the time that your foot is in contact with the ground on each step. Now the Forerunner 165 can also calculate the vertical ratio as well as oscillation, and it does that by measuring the vertical movement of your torso and using your stride length to give a ratio. Now Garmin have also managed to squeeze in Pace Pro, which helps you develop a customized pacing strategy for a course or a specific race. Now you can also create courses and maps in the Garmin Connect app for new regions and then load them onto your Forerunner 165, which is a really nice addition at this price point. Now you've also got training recovery, which recommends an approximate duration of rest before your next big training session. You can also broadcast your heart rate using ANT Plus or Bluetooth to external devices such as a Peloton bike screen or even the Strava app, which is a really nice addition here. Okay, so let's talk about sensors and accuracy. And I've been using this watch for outdoor runs as well as at the gym for strength training sessions. And to benchmark my heart rate readings, I've used the Polar H10 chest strap, which uses ECG to record heart rate data and is often considered as the gold standard for heart rate measurement. Now looking at one of my longest runs using the Forerunner 165, the watch picked up the elevation in my heart rate really well, and it almost matched the elevation profile as measured by the chest strap. In fact, it measured almost all of the peaks as well as troughs fairly accurately, and it was off by just 1 to 2 beats per minute from the chest strap, which is really impressive. Now it's a similar story for all the other runs that I've done using the Forerunner 165, except for the last one where towards the end the watch just didn't record the last 20 or so seconds and abruptly just dropped to around 112 beats per minute, which was quite strange to see. But other than that, very happy with the heart rate sensor accuracy for running. And overall, the average accuracy for the Forerunner 165 has been more than 99%, which is an excellent result for this watch. Now, when it comes to strength training and working out at the gym, this is where I see most wrist-based heart rate monitors struggle because of the large variations in wrist as well as hand movements. And the Forerunner 165 did just about okay. I mean, it caught most of the peaks in my heart rate as I moved from one set to the next. But there was one point where it just failed to capture the rapid elevation in my heart rate, causing a difference of about 50 beats per minute. Now, overall, the Forerunner 165 achieved an average accuracy of approximately 95% for strength training sessions at the gym, which is just about okay. Normally, I'm looking for 95% and above as a really good result for watches, so this one is just on the borderline. Okay, so let's talk about GNSS and location tracking. So the Forerunner 165 is equipped with a single band receiver with multi GNSS capabilities. and it can latch on to GPS, GLONASS as well as Galileo. Now looking at the map here, the route you see here in blue is the actual route I ran, and the red route here is what the Forerunner 165 recorded. It got my location fairly soon after I started the run, and it did well tracking my location, including the correct side of the road that I actually ran on. The location tracking was better in an open space, and when I went under fairly heavy tree coverage, the watch did just about okay keeping track of me except for this short segment. Now overall, I think that the GNSS accuracy of the Forerunner 165 is pretty good, and I definitely recommend setting it up to use all the 3 satellite systems for the best possible accuracy. Garmin claimed that the Forerunner 165 can last up to 11 days in smartwatch mode. Now I'm quite suspicious of manufacturer claims around battery lives because they're always tested in strict conditions, and when I use wearables on these channels and test them out, I use them as if they were my own daily driver. So on average, the Forerunner 165 lost around 5% battery when I was sleeping every night. And for activities, the Forerunner 165 lost roughly 5% during workouts. So the Forerunner 165 lasted for exactly 8 days on a single charge with some fairly heavy usage. Now that's not quite the same as the 11 days claim from Garmin, but the fact that this Forerunner is able to do all of the things that I have been discussing in this video and guide me on all my outdoor runs with all systems go and last for more than a week on a single charge is definitely a win in my books. Okay, so let's talk about smart functionalities, and the Garmin Forerunner 165 can receive notifications from your phone, and you can reply to text messages, but you can only reply with some preset messages, or you can set up custom messages to use on the Garmin Connect app. But the watch doesn't have a speaker or a microphone built in it, so you can't speak to someone using the watch itself. You either have to use your headphones or you have to resort to using your phone like you always do. Now there's other things like the weather app, the music app that we talked about, and Garmin Pay that you can use to load your credit card, and that's about it when it comes to smart functionalities. And I think that's adequate for the price point, and especially given that this is not marketed as a smartwatch but rather as a sports watch. Okay, let's talk about sleep tracking, and the first topic of conversation is actually the presence of Sleep Coach here. And if you've never used Sleep Coach, this basically recommends a minimum duration of sleep based on your training activities, stress, and movements for the day. And it's nice to see that Garmin hasn't stripped that feature out of the Forerunner 165. Now, what I'm normally looking for from a wearable like this is the level of insight and recommendations given by the watch as well as the companion app. Now, within the watch itself, you get quite a lot of insight ranging from sleep score, time spent in each sleep stage, trend of your sleep over the last few days, and so on. And within the Garmin Connect app, you can also see a fair amount of information on top of that, such as how your heart rate varied during the night and how your body has recharged over the night as well, including some really good insights to improve your sleep. Okay, so let's talk about the app interface. And the good thing about the Forerunner 165 is that you get access to Garmin's powerful Connect app. Now, this app has been updated to version 5.0 very recently, and it still gives you all of the health metrics and performance metrics measured by your watch. So for example, if I open this activity, I can see quite a lot of stats and charts, and I covered most of these running metrics before, but here you can also go into the help menu for each metric to get even more information on what that specific metric means and how you can try and improve on them. Now, one of the best features of the Garmin Connect app is that it has no paywalls at all. All of the features are free to use for all users, and there's a ton of stuff here, including things like a large database of workouts if you're feeling a bit lost, and dedicated coaches to prepare you for your first 10K or even your first half marathon. I actually posted a video very recently on my channel where I discussed the major updates and how it might be a step back in some ways, causing a lot of frustrations to users. And that actually brings me on to some of the annoying features of the Forerunner 165. Although the Forerunner 165 has training recovery built into it, which gives you a minimum duration before which you can move on to your next big training session, there's no training readiness or training status here in the 165. Now, I had a look at Garmin's website, and it looks like there's quite a lot of metrics needed to calculate training readiness and training status that are actually present present in the Forerunner 165. And I feel like Garmin have removed the training readiness and the training status feature from the Forerunner 165, even though it looks like it is well capable of computing it. Now, the touchscreen on the Forerunner 165 is nice and responsive, and it's good that Garmin have given everyone the flexibility to either use the touchscreen or the buttons if they wanted to. But when I finished my runs, I couldn't use the touchscreen. The watch locked it off and forced me to use the buttons to save it, which was quite annoying because I just wanted to press the save button, which I could see at the center of the touchscreen, get done with the workout, go for a shower and get on with my day, rather than having to faff around with the buttons at the end of my run. The Forerunner 165 comes with Garmin Pay, which lets you load your credit or debit card onto the watch. And I know that Garmin Pay works really well in the US, but for other locations, like for me in the UK, Garmin Pay is absolutely rubbish because there's not many banks supporting it. So it becomes a bit of a useless feature to have in a Forerunner. Now, being a sports focused watch, the Forerunner 165 tracks all of your basic activities, but even though it has an altimeter built into it, it doesn't track any snow sports. Now, I find that quite bizarre because the Vivo Active 5, which is in the similar-ish price range, and even my 3-year-old Garmin Venue 2, both of these can track snow sports, which adds to the feeling that Garmin have just stripped out features of the Forerunner 165 to justify that price point, even though it may well be capable of detecting and tracking snow sports. It's not all negative though. Here are some cool features about the Forerunner 165. Now, the Forerunner 165 comes with something called Race Predictor, which uses your training history as well as your VO2 max to predict your 5K, 10K, half and full marathon times, and it shows a graph of the changes in those predictions over the last few weeks on the watch, which is actually quite handy to see the progress or reduction in race times as you start training a bit more regularly. If you're going for a long run in an unfamiliar area, you can create a course or a map in the Garmin Connect app for your run and then transfer it to the Forerunner 165. And it's fairly accurate in vibrating at around 150 feet before every turn, so you know exactly where you're going on a new running route. Okay, so the Forerunner 165 also has a built-in rep counter, and it's actually quite accurate. So I'm going to do 10 reps of barbell curls here, and let's see how many the watch can record.
The Forerunner 165 also comes with incident detection, so if you've had a fall when you're running, cycling or walking, the watch will automatically trigger a notification to your emergency contact.
So then, what do I think of the Garmin Forerunner 165? Apart from some very minor shortcomings which really are nitpicks for me, I think Garmin have done a really good job of creating a Forerunner here at an attractive price point, whilst still maintaining most, if not all, of the Forerunner DNA in the 165 here. And I think this is a really good running watch to buy if you've just started out running, or even if you're at an intermediate level and just trying to up your running game. I'd even say that at $250, this is a nice entry point into Garmin's ecosystem for people who aren't running regularly but occasionally and mixing their training up with strength training or other activities, so you can still get your health, performance and training metrics out of the Forerunner 165. Oh, and by the way, I'm running a full in-depth comparison of the Forerunner 165 with one of its main competitors, the Coros Pace 3. So make sure you tap onto that subscribe button so you don't miss out on that video when I release it. And let me know in the comment section below if you want me to compare the Forerunner 165 with any other running watch. See you in the next one.